Hello and welcome to Dungeoneered, a podcast dedicated to discussing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Josh.
Let's do this.
Man, I just got like such a hit of nostalgia.
I know.
As soon as you sang this, I was like, God, I miss this.
I know. It's been so long. And I did that without notes, just from memory.
I actually had forgotten exactly the words for our opening. I'm like, what do we say?
Well, I was thinking, too, I was like, man, a podcast dedicated to discussing Dungeons & Dragons, and it's been like a year since we've recorded this, and I haven't played Dungeons & Dragons in like a year. So I feel like I need to change up the opening.
I will also say a lot of our content is just world-building based, not D&D based.
I agree. I need to change it up, I think. I need to change it up.
I don't know. There's something nice about it, but I mean, it is a little misleading, and it's not. Our stuff is more world-building oriented.
Yeah.
And saying D&D might limit the scope of people that are like, oh, well, if this is D&D, I'm good. I don't need to listen to this.
Yeah, we're more of like a creative, I was going to say creative creating podcast, but that does not work. But Josh, since it's been so long, I wanted to kind of do for our lukewarm open, I kind of wanted to do just a little bit of a recap of where we've been, what's going on, so that we can kind of fill in everybody about why we've been away for so long, because it's been kind of a crazy year. At least for me, it has. So do you want me to start? Do you want to start?
I think the fact that you are the reason why we took a year off.
Wow, throw me under the bus. Just throw me under the bus.
Bus is there, and I'm pointing, and I say, go.
Okay.
Underneath now.
You know what? Fine. You know what? I'll go first because I'm such a good friend.
Let me just explain the basic premise of it really quick, and then you can go on what exactly the specifics. So,
also, I'm drinking a nice cranberry juice for everybody listening.
Oh, nice. Well, Aaron over here has been working ridiculous hours managing a whole dog place.
Yeah, an entire company.
Yeah, you do the account, like the whole 9 yards of this company.
Yeah.
And every week is like 50, 60 hours. And
very close at the very least.
Yeah.
Minimum, I'm probably doing 50. Not as much anymore, which is why we're starting again, but minimum it was about 50. So.
And then he had the brilliant idea of, well, I want to go back to school. And like, that's a great idea and great. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to try to do a full course load while working this 50, 60 hours a week. And I think I could still have friends and activities outside of work if I do that. Well, that was not the case.
Yeah. So I decided to go back to school and do school full time while working way more than full time.
Yeah.
And it kind of became quite a bit, especially, we lost kind of D&D, not because of it, I guess, but
it was. You need to do this right now. You need to go to school. Yeah. Like you need to do all that. And so the way to do that to the best of your ability is you had to drop some of that stuff off.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I spent a lot of time doing D&D, a lot of time preparing the podcast, as we all know. But
all your research,
a lot of time. Yeah, all my research that I did. But it just took up a lot of time. So in a few weeks, though, I am done with work, and I am going to be able to do the podcast pretty much full-time while I finish up school, because I have to do teaching hours, so I'm hopefully going to transition into being a teacher. But I have to do student teaching hours, so hopefully during this time, this next, couple years, hopefully, we can kind of do a little bit more content and get stuff out, and I'm not, doing 90 to 100 hour weeks of school and also work. So I'm hoping that's kind of, it will work for us at the very least, and we can kind of work around our schedules. But
yeah.
But what have you been up to? Because I'm only half. So what have you been up to?
Well, I mean, I've worked and done stuff like that, but I don't think any of that is interesting to any podcast listeners.
But you got like a new job and stuff. That's pretty cool,
I mean,
right?
I didn't get a new job within the year that we've.
Oh shoot! Did you not?
No,
I'm such a good friend.
You're a great friend. You remember all my life story.
Oh no!
No, the only thing that's really changed is like in terms of what the podcast listeners would care about is I've gone through campaigns.
Yeah. We need updates on those.
I believe I was in the middle of my post-apocalypse campaign when we stopped. Well, I went through all that, and that went really well. And
Are we allowed to have spoilers? Are you allowed to like spoil it? Because I mean, we didn't record it or anything, right? So like, how did it end? Did everybody die? Was it a real? Did the apocalypse come back and kill everybody?
so they got to a point where they had they did like a one shot, and they didn't realize the one shot was going to be important. The one shot was kind of going on this like magic train that was being built to connect one world to kind of a world where people were like way more advanced technology wise to a world that was a lot less advanced, that they were like kind of treating like slaves. They were treating them really bad. They were like ruling over them. And so they traded this train to kind of try and make it a quicker trip for them to be able to get over there.
Okay. Okay. Are you saying train or terrain?
Train.
Okay. Because I'm like,
Chug it,
man,
the choo-choo train.
just straight up, my neighbor Totoro up in this business, train to a new world.
But it turns out that that was kind of a lie. Like it wasn't
Bad guy train.
It was a bad guy train. Well, I mean, it was always a bad guy train because it was to bring these people over to do more tyranny on this other planet. But on top of that, it was actually being kind of guided by this eldritch evil. And this eldritch evil was talking into the mind of the head of this planet, the queen. Well, while on the very first trip, which it took like a 3-month journey to like 3 hours, is kind of what it did. Was how it like, so it would have been made everything a lot quicker.
Okay, so I see. So it's like it would have taken a long time to get to this place, but instead now, because of this magic train,
it was 3 hours. Yes. Okay. So on their very first trip, she had the queen had kind of forced all the nobility and all the kind of people that she had lots of influence over. She kind of forced them to go on the first trip. Well, during this first trip, some people began to figure out there's something wrong here. Something's going wrong. Like something's not right about this trip and about the kind of this weird like dimension that they're traveling through. Well, the dimension they're traveling through is the same dimension that has this eldritch evil. And what he actually wanted to do was he wanted to create this train that would pretty much break a hole in the barrier between the planes to allow him to escape.
Oh, gosh.
Well, realizing that, the people on the train, or at least some people on the train, stop it from moving. They go and they like go to the engine, and it finds out the engine is kind of this eldritch evil horrible thing, but all in all they stop the train. So there was a one shot where these one shot characters get on this train. They get to make the decision of whether they keep the train in this kind of stasis longer, where the eldritch evil still has some sort of like influence where it can kind of send out like zombies and little minions, but it can't escape, or they actually finish the route, land the train, which will break the planar barrier, but they would actually then in that world be able to actually kill it off.
Okay, I see.
So it was pretty much deciding like how what did they want the end of the campaign to look like? Did they want it to be kill this eldritch evil, or something more smaller scale, just on the planet focused? And they chose take on this eldritch evil. Well, in the end, that made it so that these one-shot characters went and actually became main characters. Because the train lands after they killed the queen, the train lands and they have to like find important people in the world and tell them what's happening, and we need to build an army and we need to prepare for this.
Yeah, we're gonna die. We're all gonna die.
So it had these one-shot characters become like secondary main characters. In the end,
Did you swap between them?
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow.
Well, yeah. So like based on scenes and stuff and what was happening. So the original group, they called themselves the Plane Seekers.
That's pretty plain.
And then the other, it gets worse. The secondary group got called the Plane Seekers.
That's so dumb. I love it so much.
And so in the end, for the final battle, it was all these like high up like commanders of the Eldritch Abomination's army. They had to fight through, and then they had to get pretty much a nuke inside of the mouth of this eldritch evil. So one who they decided like which party members would go into the mouth and which would stay out.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And so the ones outside had to make sure, because the eldritch evil was coming through the portal during the fight. So what they had to do is they had to wait till the portal was opened by the enemy side. Wait till it was opened. Have a party jump through with the bomb. Then the party outside first has to make sure that the people casting the portal and opening it die, so that the portal shuts, and then they light off the nuke inside.
And I'm assuming they were successul because it's a D&D campaign, right?
Well, I mean, it was also it got intense there at times where it was like, I don't know what's like.
I don't take you as a DM who's like, you screwed up, you all lose.
I try not to be. I try
not to be.
Well, like if I can't think of any way of saving them, I will just let it happen, because I appreciate realism.
Yeah.
But I also try and give them every opportunity to not fail.
I mean, obviously if they're doing something completely ridiculous, maybe there has to be some consequences, but I don't think I wouldn't. I get very for the story vibes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say after that campaign, we played a really great game. I'm forgetting who the creator of it is, but it's called now I'm forgetting. Oh no, I can't remember what it's called.
Let me just on the internet search up really great game.
It's the something year. It's like the Lost Year or
the something year. That will help. The something year. No, that didn't help.
RPG, the
California Salmon Festival. I don't think that.
No, I don't think that's right.
How about the Dow
Quiet Year? The Quiet Year.
The Quiet Year. Okay.
Yeah, so it's.
I've never heard of this. Is this a RPG or a TTRPG system?
Yeah, but it is here. I'll just read the definition. The Quiet Year is a map game. You define the struggles of a community living after the collapse of civilization. Attempt to build something good within their quiet year. Each decision and every action is set against a backdrop of dwindling time and rising concerns. The game is played using a deck of cards. Each of the 52 cards corresponds to a week during the quiet year. Each card triggers a certain event, bringing bad news, good omens, project delays, and sudden changes in luck. At the end of the quiet year, the Frost Shepherds will come, ending the game. And so we used this system and these cards to create a city and kind of small area around that city for our next campaign, which is what we're currently playing.
And you're DMing multiple campaigns, right now?
Yes, I am DMing a second campaign.
And how is that one going?
I mean, that one's going great. That one's a very different vibe, and we also meet a lot less often, which is why I love my Friday night group, because my Friday night group, we have been doing it for so many years at this point. We've gone through, we're on our fourth campaign right now, and we're reliable. Like, we meet most weeks, which is hard to find.
Yeah, true.
Well, that is 15 minutes. So I think we should
we're
get into the topic.
Well, I was gonna say because it's our first topic back, so I'm just gonna guess what it is right now, and I'm gonna nail it, and we're just gonna move on, right?
Yeah, and it's related to something that's happening on August 3rd. I'll give you that hint.
Baldur's Gate.
Yes, you got it.
The only reason I knew that is because we talked about it. We talked about Baldur's Gate when we had dinner the other day.
Yeah. So I just thought as a good like context to the game coming out, the Baldur's Gate 3 on August 3rd, we might talk about the first Baldur's Gate game and kind of give some context of what you're getting into.
I have never played a single one of these games, but I've heard they're really fun.
The funny thing is I don't remember anything about the first two games, but my dad and my sister and I all played them a lot as like growing up.
And is this all of you guys playing them, or is this like
I think you could all play them at the same time. We still have like just like kind of jokes about things that I did when I was like 5 in this game. Cause like I was a young child, so like they were fighting some enemy, and I just ran over and opened a chest, and they're like, "What are you doing?" Like, and so there's jokes about stuff like that, but I didn't remember any of the story of these games. But let me just hop into the story as we are. I think it's pretty good after I've done the research, and I think it's a pretty interesting story, and it will definitely affect the third game.
Isn't Baldur's Gate 3 like some sort of mind flare or something or another? Because I've seen the trailer.
Yeah, so Baldur's Gate 3...
Did we talk about it?
I don't know. We probably have, because I was playing the early access. Baldur's Gate 3 starts with you being infected by a mind flayer tadpole, which I know we've talked about in a previous episode, all about seramorphosis and how what mind flayers do is they infect you with this tadpole, and then within, I think it's like 2 days, you turn into a mind flayer. So in Baldur's Gate,
super creepy.
It is. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. If you look terrifying. At the very first reveal trailer for Baldur's Gate 3, you literally see a character turn, like, seramorphosize and turn into a mind flayer, and it is the grossest, most slimy, horrifying thing that is so
doesn't
beautiful
he like
to
put
watch.
a weird little bug in her eyeball, right? A little bug in her eyeball.
Well, yeah, that's the tadpole.
Yeah, it's so gross. I hate it.
And
so
that's in another trailer. That's not in the first trailer. The very first trailer has a human turning into a mind flayer, and it's beautiful.
Whoa. It's beautiful.
It's crazy, dude. It's the most. It's so wild. But so the story of Baldur's Gate 1 has nothing to do with mind flayers. They're in it a little bit, but like they're them and Gith are not the main things at all. So the story of Baldur's Gate 1 actually requires a little bit of context. Now I know we've kind of talked about this context lightly in the past. It all deals with the god of murder, Baal. This god existed during the times known as the Times of Troubles, which we've definitely talked about before.
And I definitely feel like being the god of murder definitely correlates to the time of trouble, but that could just be my guess.
I mean, the time of trouble wasn't his fault.
He just enjoyed the times.
No god enjoyed the times of troubles. The times of troubles is what happened was, so in D&D there are gods, and then there is a thing called an over deity, which is like, it's even more of a like leader of the pantheon than like Zeus in Greek mythology. Like it's more than that. God. He's just like
a big old...
Yeah, in that one he's just another god. This guy is straight up so much more powerful than the other gods. So two of the gods trying to gain some sort of power of this over god steal these things called the Tablets of Fate. Well, this over god calls everybody together and says, "Hey, like, tell me who did it, and I'll just punish them and everybody else will be fine." Well, nobody else knows who did it, so nobody gives anybody up. So he's like, fine. If you're not going to tell me, I am going to make you all vulnerable and mortal and kick you out of your respective heavens. You will be stuck on the material plane as mortals.
Yikes. That sucks.
So all of the gods are suddenly mortal, a lot less powerful, and on Earth, and on like Toril, the Forgotten Realms world.
Man, they got to come join the peasants now.
Really. And Baal, as being immortal, he actually foresaw his own death. So he began to be like, okay, well, if I know I'm gonna die, how do I come back? Let me start putting in the work to like not be fully permanently dead. He did this by having relations with many mortal women before his death, siring children with them.
I feel young again, Sonny.
These heirs were known as Baal spawn.
I can't. No. I can't. That is a terrible name. What were they thinking?
One of these spawn was known as Saravok. Saravok Unchev, and he is the antagonist of Baldur's Gate 1. Saravok wishes to ascend, taking over the position of the god of murder.
Jeez.
As a child, he was kidnapped by the cult of Baal, who at this time was dead, and nearly sacrificed along with a bunch of other Baal spawn, trying to fulfill Baal's plan and bring about his resurrection. They were stopped by another group who we've talked about before, the Harpers. They rescued these kids, and some were even adopted. But in all this, there wasn't much detail on exactly how this happened, but for somehow Saravok was actually left behind and ended up a street urchin fending for himself. The assassin Richter, also known as the Arm of the Iron Throne, found Saravok and adopted him. Now, the Iron Throne is a criminal organization that hides its illegal activity with a public face of a legal merchant group.
I'm going to ask you a question you probably don't know the answer to, and it's probably kind of irrelevant. But how did they get their name? Did they just thought it sounded cool, or was there like a reason behind the Iron Throne?
I am sure there's a reason, but I will
next
not.
Episode.
Well, I do think I might talk about them in another episode, depending on how much they actually have to talk about. Yeah, it's not giving me anything quickly on like. I mean, from what it sounds like, they also heavily invest. They have a lot of actual iron trade that they do.
Okay.
So that's kind of is also from like what they have the most of.
So might just be the kind of what they're working with.
Mm-hmm. Besides the drugs and illegal stuff.
Well, you know.
Soon after he was adopted, terrible dreams haunted him, as do all Baal spawn. They were vivid dreams of destruction and mayhem, sometimes even broadcasting a message from Baal to the spawn. Saravok saw and learned much from Richter, who was operating under a pseudonym at the time of Rieltar. Saravok learned of his origin and the power Baal spawn hold, but he did not truly understand all that he read. And he made a grave error.
I don't think I'm ever going to be able to not laugh when you say Baal spawn.
It's not good. It's not a great...
It's so bad.
So he read the passages about Baal's resurrection instead as instructions on how to take his place. He read the passages about all of the deaths caused by Baal spawn, allowing him to rise as himself growing stronger. What it meant was all of these Baal spawn, as they kill people, it is making Baal stronger to eventually come back to life.
It's too much for me, man. It's too much. I feel like I'm in an episode of Critical Role where Laura Bailey just can't get out of her dumb, dirty mind.
I mean, you're not wrong. I didn't.
So
I've just been like, I wrote it all down and didn't think about it again. And you pointed it out, and I'm like, oh, I guess I didn't catch that as being super weird.
It's so bad. Anyways, continue.
So he knew the one thing he did get right was that he knew that these prophecies was for him to kill lots and lots of people to gain power. So he began using what he's learned from his own bloodlust and the wit and tactics of his adopted father and the Iron Throne to plan something on a grand scale to kill lots of people. Along the way, he met in Candlekeep the monk Gorion and his ward, who he came to realize was also a ball spawn. This will be important later, as the ward is the main character of Baldur's Gate 1. Now, Saravok saw other ball spawn as threats to his ascension and power. And though he continued to do schemes and work with his father and grow the Iron Throne, he kept this ward in his periphery. Like he always saw it as a threat. So he's like, I don't want to let these people go. Well, finally the opportunity arrives that he thinks he can kill this ward. With a group of men, he ambushes Gorion and his ward. But though he killed Gorion, the ward was able to escape. The ward began causing trouble in small scale, destroying the schemes of Saravok, while his bigger ambitions were actually being halted by the Iron Throne, as he was overreaching his station and even dragging them into wars that they didn't want to be in. In an attempt to stop a war with the Knights of the Shield, the Iron Throne sent Rieltar and another high-ranking member, Brunos Kostok. Well, Saravok had them killed, and even left evidence to frame the ward for their deaths, making him,
of course,
making them, because it could be anybody, because it is the main character of this game, making them an enemy of the Iron Throne. For this, they were imprisoned within the dungeon of the Great Fortress Library. Saravok then tries to spark a war to get more bloodshed for his plans, and has a member of Baldur's Gate's Council of 4 killed, and the commander of the Iron Fist killed as well. They set up evidence to blame it on a guild of the nation of Amun. This started rumblings of war, which terrified many within Baldur's Gate. In this chaos, he made himself an even more public figure and got himself a nomination for the position of Grand Duke of Baldur's Gate.
He's working his way up, man.
He really is. This is partially because he kind of got this position because of his war prowess and his connection to the quote-unquote merchants of the Iron Throne, making sure that they can be providing the iron and other materials needed for the war. Well, his schemes were seemingly going off without a hitch, as he was already set to be coronated as the Grand Duke. Well, during his coronation, the ward appeared, having escaped his imprisonment, to confront Saravok. The ward revealed all that they knew to the onlookers of who Saravok was and what he wanted. After a fight, he fled into the Undercity, a cavernous ruined city underneath Baldur's Gate. There he had a ball temple and all this stuff planned ahead. He was pursued by the ward, who, with the help of their allies, fought and ended Saravok, to which his body dissolved into golden dust as his essence dispersed. The game shows it from there going to a place where it implies it went into Ball, making it one step closer to his revival. And the game actually even does like a zoom out, as it's kind of like this like mass sarcophagus area, and it kind of implies that there are hundreds and hundreds of ball spawn all fighting in their own like miniature war against each other.
Gosh, Ball got busy, man.
Yeah.
He really got busy.
I believe in the next game, it is like all the ball spawn fighting each other for like supremacy. But that is all I have for Baldur's Gate 1 this week. And I think there's a few interesting ways that we can take this for our own creation. I think one interesting one would be like creating some sort of person that has their own death workaround.
Okay. What's the second option?
Well, the second option would be like creating some sort of like how all of these ball spawn are connected in some way to like
One big daddy.
want to fight each other. Like there's like a natural inclination for that.
Okay.
If there was some sort of like, while the rest of the world is going on, there's like this secret side war going on of like, I'm kind of now thinking of, there was a video game series where I cannot remember what it's called. I think a new one just recently came out or was coming out where it's like No More Heroes, I think it is, where they're like assassins that like are ranked and they all have to go and fight each other to like go up ranks in this like side thing.
Well, I do like the first idea. I like the idea of trying to create shoot, I just lost my train of thought.
Trying to create a death workaround.
Yeah, I do kind of like that idea. And for some reason, the first place my mind went to, and this doesn't have to be what we create, is like some sort of, instead of like a god type thing, some sort of like ancient magic of some kind. Because I was kind of thought it was really interesting when you mentioned the library fortress prison thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the heck? Why? What is that? Like, what is? Does it hold awesome secrets? Like creating something like something that's like imprisoned somewhere that's like the secret to, some sort of arcane secret that allows one to prolong their life, or
that's like
maybe
like
a Harry Potter
like a
thing,
Goblet of Eternity like thing.
Yeah, or just like a
Horcrux.
spell or incantation that can like split your soul, like a Harry Potter type thing, or
Which they already doing that exists in D&D.
Have we talked about it? I feel like we talked about it.
The spell in D&D, I don't think we've talked about it.
Because I feel like
it's like clone
something
or something like that, right?
Well, I know there's a simulacron, and I know
well, there's one where you literally create. There's one where you literally create like a clone that like when you die, this is where you come back to. You like literally wake up out of a like out of a some sort of birthing pod.
Yep. Yeah, 8th level spell where you pretty much create a clone of yourself, and if you die, you become that thing. So maybe something along those lines, I think could be really fun. There's also a part of me that it could be interesting to create some sort of entity that you could like tether yourself to, so that when you died, as long as this entity didn't die, you could come back as like a new person. I think that could be kind of a cool thing to do also. So I'm pretty much down to go with whatever.
I have a few different ideas I'd like to run by you for this idea you had.
Do it.
So
do it.
Either do like a full on, I don't know if you've ever seen, I think it's oh gosh, what was it called? There was like a dragon, it was a dragon movie with I think it was Mel Gibson, and he like pretends to kill the dragon at all these points. Like for all these villages,
dragon?
and then they like give him money for like, oh, you defeated the dragon, thank you, but it's actually the same dragon. He's just doing this heist. At one point, he gets hurt, and the dragon like shares his heart with him, and so it's a similar thing where like, what if it's like you could link your heart with this dragon, and then like it gives you life as long as the dragon has life, or it's like some sort of like life-giving tree that you can like some sort of fey tree that you have to go to like the Feywild and do this whole thing to connect your soul to.
Yeah, see, like I think it'd be really fun. I think there's a couple things you could do, especially with the Feywild one. I think could be really fun. But
I think it would also be fun to make it like all dragons can do this, and you have to just be a good enough friend to a dragon for them to be willing to do this for you. And so like it could be like a fun thing that you give the party at one point, like if they befriend a dragon, or like there's fun ways to make it integral to the world.
Yeah, I think I also think you could kind of roll with the like an idea of like a tree, which I think might be a little bit more what's the word I'm thinking of? More like cliche, like a world tree.
Yeah.
That you could like connect yourself to, which would be really interesting. And then if somebody destroys the tree, then it destroys your self as well. That could be something you could do as
Did you ever watch Naruto?
I have watched Naruto. I know the entire story of Naruto. I haven't watched the very last arc because I couldn't take it anymore.
Well, I'm gonna say
when I mean last arc, I mean like
I don't want to spoil anything.
Shippuden.
And I'm gonna try not to spoil anything for anybody, but I will talk about something that was later in the thing. I'm not going to tell you how important it was, whether it was a main story or side story thing, because there's 1,000,001 side stories in Naruto.
Yes. No, yeah. That's an exaggerate. That's an underestimate.
That's true. That's true. 1,000,001 is definitely an underestimate. But there was a tree, and the tree kind of like wrapped people up and cocooned them. I'm thinking like that would be a really fun thing if like that was someone's goal to taint the tree. Like everybody linked to it would become these cocoons, and like that was like the goal, or have it be like that's the instigating incident. Like suddenly all these super powerful people are completely out of commission in these weird cocoons around the whole world, and then like everybody's trying to figure out what's happening, and like everybody who knew anything about this tree is now out of commission and can't explain anything.
I like that a lot. My mind first went to instead of like them being just in cocoons around the world, it's some sort of like for some reason I went to like an insect hive where things like collect you and take you to this tree, or like they take your soul or spirit and you get like wrapped in this cocoon. It's like some sort of ethereal something.
What? Okay. What if that's so? Like, if we're making this like a campaign, which for new listeners, the second half of the episode, we most often create a world, and then we like each week we'll add to that world a little bit.
Yeah.
So what if for the first like arc of this campaign, it would be all these like super high level people are suddenly in cocoons. The world's going crazy. And then like halfway through, like when they get like level 7 to 10, that's when these like weird alien insectoid creatures start showing up trying to take these cocooned people back.
Well, I think
but like nobody knows like, and so everybody's like, some people are like fighting them, trying to like keep them away. Other people are like, I'll follow them, try to see where they go and figure out what's going on.
If you wanted to go like straight up alien xenomorph stuff, you could like, if they're in these cocoons, like, maybe at level 4 somebody like breaks out of the cocoon, but they're like they've transformed into something bad. So like if they're in the cocoon for too long, they turn into something different. But I feel like that would defeat the purpose of having like yourself tethered to a tree to like avoid death, unless we just scrap that idea completely.
Well, no. So what I was thinking is that I was thinking that this is a bastardization of that. So this is the original. That is what was happening. Everybody lives as long as this tree, but then someone does something to the tree, some group or whatever, and causes this to happen. And so this is not an intended or even supposed to happen thing. This is somebody doing something to the tree, causing this to happen. And so they're doing whatever else they're doing, which maybe is like trying to take over the world, but they're not a level 20 villain. They're like trying to take over the world and first take out as many of these high level people as possible. And this is like the fastest way to do that.
I know we've talked about it on the podcast before, but this kind of reminds me of the group I made called The Dynasty, which, we've talked about on the podcast a bunch. But it really reminds me of that because the Dynasty kind of did something similar to that, where they would like turn you could connect yourself essentially to the queen, and you would get turned into one of the Dynasty members, one of their hive mind. Kind of reminds me of something like that, but it's a little different, which I think I really like. And I see like with this tree, like some sort. It reminds me a little bit of like, how in D&D there's like magical lines in the sky. I don't know what they're called. I don't remember anymore.
Magical ley lines.
But, yes. I love the idea of like somebody trying to do some sort of ritual and it goes wrong, like at the tree to either harness its power or maybe be the only person that stays immortal. Like they become the tree or they become immortal because they've taken the trees. People are tethered to them instead of the tree, and it goes completely wrong. And then the tree becomes corrupted by whatever their evil intent was, or maybe it partially succeeds. So the tree is like partially a person now, partially that person. I think that could be something interesting too. And then like over the course of the campaign, you'd have to like find where this tree is, or find, you would drop hints throughout the campaign of, magic. I mean, I guess this would be like almost like Critical Role's campaign, but spoilers, no spoilers. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but
which campaign?
The most current one. This one I'm not going to talk about it.
Well, the funny thing is you're saying that, but I stopped watching, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's good. Anyway. I've been really enjoying it, but dropping hints of like these times of magical increases and times of magical prosperity, I guess you would say, that allow you to do crazy enchantments or crazy rituals that wouldn't normally be possible.
I will say,
tried to.
I have been reading books in the Forgotten Realms setting, and that is already that is a thing in
for sure
in the actual world. Like the one I read first, it was a drow story. It's like one of the most popular. It's one of the most well-known characters in the Forgotten Realms, Driss Do'Urden, and it's the very first book in their series. And when that character was born, their family was attacking another drow family, and they waited until the moment of the birth was about to happen, because as the birth was happening, like the power of birth and like the pain she's in, like the mother, she was able to cast this massive spell because of it.
And I think something along those lines would be really cool. I think my question would be like, is this tree hidden? Because, we have to kind of build the world here. We have kind of like a basic idea of this tree. Is this tree like a major part of the world, or is it like hidden away, or was it once? And
I like that it's on. I like the idea that it's on another plane.
I do too. Did it start there, or did it like transfer there? I like the idea of it not starting there.
Well, I'm okay with it not starting there. Okay, what if it's actually like the body of a god that died? And it grew
that was
into
one
this
of my
tree.
Thoughts. Yeah, I thought about that too. But I kind of want it to be separate from the gods.
Okay.
I think it'd be fun to. I mean, I don't want to be like a titan, like something that isn't the gods, like something that created the world. Maybe there's
more of a primordial force.
Yeah, well, and it's been like a year since we made World, so we might overlap some stuff because I don't remember everything about what we made
before. Yeah, we've gone through a few different worlds over the seasons.
Yeah, but it would be interesting to do like a version of the world that was created by, like a primordial force, and then versions of the world that were created by the gods or whatever. And maybe they kind of like intermingle or clash, or, gods invaded the world. But I think that's a pretty traditional D&D story, is it not? Where like primordials created stuff and then the gods came in and like took over.
Well, what I would like to suggest is the idea of that is definitely kind of tropey. But what if the primordial forces that made the world are not like it's half between like they're not sentient to they're sentient in a way that we just don't understand or can't even communicate or even think about.
I guess.
And so like when the gods came and were like trying to create their things on the world, they didn't come to blows because it's a completely different type of life form.
Could we do like pillars of the world, like one's a tree, one's a mountain?
That's exactly what I was thinking. 100%. I was thinking like they're different like major landmarks, like as you said, one's a mountain, one's this giant tree, like maybe one's this giant ocean.
I think it'd be interesting if the gods out of fear like transported them to different planes so that they could never.
Yes, once together. The world was created to a part where they are like transported them away. I love that. That's how we got the
think
plane.
that-
That's how we got the elemental planes.
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah, that could be
The
super
plane
cool.
of fire, the plane of water, the plane of earth, and the plane of air.
Yeah, the 4 elements lived in harmony
Well,
until the gods
that's what the
attacked.
legitimate elemental planes are. But yes, those are the exact same ones as the nation. The nations.
Yeah. No, but I think I like that a lot. And you could, I think the idea behind what this ritual was like, if I connect myself to one of these living spirits, I can't die, right? So like, even if as long as this natural spirit lives on and is still tethered in some way to the world, then I can live.
Question. I know you didn't
Yes.
want it to be related to the gods, but what
I don't
if
want any ball spawn. I just don't want. I don't need any of those.
what if the gods aren't like traditional gods? And what if they're mortal? And the first ones to connect themselves to these elemental primordials were the gods.
They became gods because they like took their powers, part of their power, or
I think they were incredibly powerful beings already. Like that is part of them always. But the part that made them immortal is connecting to these trees. So when the tree stuff goes bad, the gods disappear as well.
Okay. I really love the idea of kind of branching off from a traditional god path where like the gods were mortal.
Mm-hmm.
All of them were mortal and they became gods. I think that would be a really interesting take. And I like the idea of them taking I don't want to say taking their power, but earning their power a little bit differently, I think would be really interesting. And would you want it to be related to these pillars?
I like the idea of them. I like the idea of when something goes wrong, the gods disappear as well. I just really like the world scrambling. Everything they normally take comfort in of like, oh, we'll be safe. We have this high level wizard in our nation. To, oh, we can just pray to the gods. All of that is gone.
I don't dislike it, but I think what I'm struggling with is, yeah, I mean, it would have to be a pretty particular campaign, though. I feel like the world would completely implode. Like, I feel like,
Well, I think definitely what's going on is there's a lot of turmoil in nations for sure. It would be a lot of work on the DM to like plan ahead, like how the nations start falling apart.
yeah, because I love the idea of the gods being created from whatever these pillars are, or somehow being created because of these pillars. I think we should start before we decide their fate is how they were created from these, or how they kind of formed from these pillars. Because if they're like tethered, like we were talking about earlier, and you know it would be all the gods that were tethered to the tree are now disappeared, but certain gods that were tethered to different pillars are still exist.
Or maybe there was maybe in this pantheon there are gods that are mortal, like that just never connect to the trees or to the primordials, and so some gods literally just die at a certain age.
So there would be like an ever expanding pantheon of,
or ever changing, at least, even if it's not always expanding, but like ever. There's some, like there's the high level ones that always stay, the high, like the well known gods, and then the little gods, the ones underneath, change.
or each time a god dies, they're reborn as a different version of their pantheon. Could be something they do. So like the god of love dies and becomes this,
Or
the god of life or something, like,
or how about like, what if they keep the same domain, but their personality and appearance completely changes?
I think what I like more is I like the idea of, I don't even know if I want just 4 pillars, if I want more than 4, but I like the idea of like these major pillars that are primordials, that are like these ancient entities, beings of some kind that formed and created the earth. And then the gods were created. They were the first mortals to tether to these pillars.
Yeah.
So once mortals figured out they could tether to these pillars, that's how the gods were created. So they became like immortal and powerful. I don't want to say siphoned, but they, gained power from these pillars. I think I love the idea of a subset that got power but did not tether to pillars at all. I think I like that idea as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I want that to be or what I want that to look like, but I like that idea. And I think the story would revolve around, and this might be a little bit tropey, so we might want to change it, but I love the idea of a very classic story of, this is really Critical Role though. So but like, I hate the gods. Like, we don't like the gods anymore. Or like, like an Age of Arcana where they try to rebel against the gods. And during that time, they figure out that gods are tethered to these primordial beings, and a human, the gods, and this might not be common knowledge anymore, but gods were created by these primordials. If you can take over these primordials or tether yourself to a primordial, you also can become a god. And you can do that through all sorts of different experiments and rituals, and maybe travel to the plane that this primordial is on. All sorts of different things you could become a god that way. Then somebody in recent history tries to tether themselves to the tree in an attempt to either A, get rid of a portion of the gods, because if you get rid of the pillar they're tethered to, you get rid of the gods, right? You get rid of those or they lose their immortality. So if you block that off and you kill one, then they die forever, right? I don't think I want them to just die right away. I think I like the idea of, if you break the tether and then somebody stabs them, like, they're dead, right?
Yeah, it just makes them mortal.
Right, it makes them mortal. And as they either A, try to do that to break the tether, or B, control gods. So if they could control the pillar, then maybe all the gods would be tethered to them and they'd become all powerful or whatever, right? So I like both of those reasonings. And then it went horribly wrong. They corrupted the tree, and these gods are now disappearing, or being frozen in time or stuck in a cocoon, and some of their followers that are closely tethered to them, maybe it's like a world of tethers, start turning into these cocoons, and that's how we kind of get these cocoons. So like a high up church priest, turns into a cocoon. Maybe one of the libraries, because one of the the head librarian, the head mage, worships a god of knowledge or whatever, and they turn.
Can I add a little thing to this?
Oh no, go ahead. Yes.
So I like this. I like all of what you said, and I definitely like the idea of instead of the other people being tethered to the tree, they're tethered to their god, who is tethered to the tree, type thing.
Right.
I like that. What if this, as you called it, you could just get the power of the gods? What if that is just the ability to, in a meta sense, go up levels to level 20? What if the power they unlocked is just to go from nobody peasant to actually gaining all these abilities? So it would make sense that a level 20 paladin would have those abilities because they're tethered to their god and have worked up to the level 20 paladin, and then somebody connected to the tree would do get the powers of nature and could go up as a ranger or a druid or whatever, and the quote unquote power of the gods is just the what we think of as character classes.
Yeah, I like that, and I think that could play. So first, I wouldn't want it to be, if I was creating this world for a D&D campaign, I wouldn't want it to be super limiting. So if somebody wanted to be a druid, I wouldn't necessarily, I'd have to feel out the vibe of them creating the character before I decided if, the druid would be, they get their power from this tree, right?
I think my main thing is that I was thinking of these primordials as having no personality. They're not entities as we know entities, so we don't they're not going to make decisions that a player could be well, I don't want to follow that guy, I don't agree with that, because they don't make that type of decisions. They think so little of us, we're so otherworldly that it wouldn't affect them in that way. But I could definitely see how it might be a problem for some people, where they might see it as I didn't want my character to be like that.
Yeah. So I I'm in full agreement that I don't think these pillars, these things are necessarily, they're not like personalities or entities, right? Um, I see them again more so just as forces, like forces of the world, I guess. Um, and I could see one being providing people arcane magic. It's why arcane magic works. Why you can access that. It's why you can access druid magic. I think that's a very reasonable, an interesting thing that I don't think players would be upset about. They probably wouldn't know until they delved into their story more or whatever, right? Druids can use their magic because of this ancient pillar, this tree that provides magic to all of its to everybody in the world.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think that's great. I think a question that I'd have if we went that route is if one of those pillars disappeared, how would that affect, like, say the tree, just, as an example, the tree provides, connects druids to their magic. What would happen if the tree gets corrupted and breaks? Would they lose their magic, or is there a storage? I don't
I think based on your level, how connected you are directly to it, it would change the effect.
Okay. Yeah, I
but
don't
I think
lose.
I think I would have to figure that out to a level. I think it would need to be some sort of I think you could have fun with ideas of maybe it goes a little haywire.
Yeah, I think
maybe people get a little bit of wild magic, but I think it would need to be thought out and talked about with players before making big decisions like that on their characters.
Yeah, how I would probably run it is there's a couple ways that I'd run it. One, if I wanted to do this early, I'd probably have some sort of magic, reserve that was in the world still, so that they didn't lose their power.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't thinking of it early.
Perhaps like a druid tribe guards that reserve, right? That's their ancient, duty that they've always protected. Nobody knows what it is, but it's what they, it's the heart of the world or whatever, something like that.
It makes sense.
If I wanted to do this catastrophe a little bit early and kind of set it up, I would have these reserves for each of the magics, and there's tribes or churches that defend these. Most people don't know what they are, 99% of the world doesn't know what they do or what they are, or they even exist, probably something like that. But probably what I would rather do is time it to where the player would never lose their power, but there's a threat of that occurring. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's definitely how I more saw it. I definitely never saw any of these world pillars falling. I only saw it as a corruption that would be it's becoming a problem for certain people who are closer in the chain than you are, type thing. So it's only the direct connections are having the problem, but it's spreading. So you see it on the horizon is possibly going to happen to you, but it's not probably going to happen during the campaign.
Yeah, or it could be interesting too to I think Mark Humes does this in one of his games, the DM of High Rollers, but I think what you could do also is a strange forest popped up in the middle of nowhere, it's kind of weird and corrupted, or some sort of shard of magic fell from the sky, and now people who are arcane inclined have really powerful magic there, right? Or these little weird things that occur, or the opposite effects, right? And you could have a combat in there where their power is a little bit limited, could be kind of fun, to mix it in there. So having something like that could be a way to introduce it. But I think I would try and, center the story around, giving these little hints that this stuff could happen. Or, if they find a library here, we are at a library again, but if they find a library of reading these ancient tomes that wizards had these ideas of, being able to eliminate magic by doing X, Y, and Z, and, they find out all this information. So you could definitely play it that way. And I think it'd be interesting, maybe in other episodes to discuss what these pillars are and what they represent, and, build off a little bit more on these pillars. Because we could make a bunch of them. We could make 4, we could make 12, who knows, right? But I think it could be fun to kind of build off of these, because I think it's a very interesting way to form a world that I don't think I've done before.
Yeah. I will say, since you brought up Mark Humes, now that Erois is done, I'm excited to be able to see a campaign start from them.
I know. I'm so excited for their new campaign. I just really love them just because they don't feel as... I love Critical Role, don't get me wrong, but they just don't feel as production-y. And Critical Role is a blast, right? I'm not saying they're not. But it's just fun to be... It feels like you're just kind of sitting at the table, like being dumb with, with the squad.
Yeah.
But I think how I kind of want to build a little bit more off this escaping death from these pillars.
Mm-hmm.
How people like get away from death with these pillars. Is it only for the gods? And if somebody connects to a tether to one of these pillars and avoids death, do they become a god, or is there another process? What are we thinking there?
What if we make it like I don't want to say diminutive returns, but like sort of, where it's like anybody who is connected technically has a longer life, but it depends on like your power level, like what level character you are, type thing.
Are there...
And I think it's not excessive. I think it's like, oh, if you're level 20, you live 200 years type thing. So it just gives you like double the amount of time. But that's like for a human specifically. There's other races and things for other lifetimes.
I guess my next question would be like, are there different types of tethers, like stronger tethers, weaker tethers?
I think like if you're directly connected, anybody can become immortal. If anybody directly connects, they're straight up immortal. It's the like secondary binds that are finite.
Yeah. I think I like that. And how does one go about connecting? Just magic?
You got to find it. So like if where we end up putting this stuff, like whether it's on another plane or whatever, you have to find it and like physically connect to it, or maybe there's like some sort of like group that protects them and you have to like get on their good side to be able to do this. I don't know what our idea would be.
Google is a terrifying entity, because as we're talking about this, I have been playing YouTube video of raining music and stuff, because I always do. And on my shorts that just popped up is like a picture of this tree, because apparently that's how life works. And the tree is like surrounded by all these like flowers and spirits and insects that are like flying around. So it could be really interesting. Like if you wanted to connect, you'd have to somehow get through like its guardian spirits or whatever. I think that's probably what would be, the spirits that are tethered to it.
Would it be like a fight, or would it be like a prove your worth? Like we'll look at the decisions you've made and stuff to determine your worth, or like how do you see that process?
Boy, I think it depends on the intent. I think a powerful mage could go in there and blow everything up and then connect to it, right? I think that probably is the case. But maybe if this spirit sensed it was in this like guardian sensed it was in danger or something, there could be some sort of prove your worth trial. Like if a player wanted to connect to it, I don't know, but you could probably do either.
I kind of like that idea, what you were saying, where like let there be multiple ways, so that like if a player comes kind of any idea they throw out about how they want to do it, you could let work. Like, hey, if you want to fight all these guys and make it there, that you could do that. You could also like try and reach out and connect with one of these fae, and then they'll be like there will be a trial of sorts, like letting that openness of like how your players have the choice of how they believe it should connect.
Yeah, that's probably what I would do. I'd probably have a set, I'd have, for lore reasons, I'd probably have ways to connect, but then if players played the game and developed a different, way, I would probably be like, yep, that works. That's probably what I would do. Like I think brute force would be a way, just destroying all the guardian spirits and then, forcing your connection would probably work. And I think that's probably how, things happen. How, one of these gets corrupted is probably the reason. I think doing a trial would probably work. I even think you might not necessarily have to find the tree. I think there'd be some sort of interesting dynamic to use where you could connect to like the magic of the world or something, harness. I don't know. I think it could be interesting to figure out a way that you wouldn't have to directly like be at the tree.
Yeah.
To, like if you.
Yeah, the door-to-door
ritual.
salesman of the tree.
Yeah.
He meets you and he's like, well, I can develop like a connection now, but you have to wait a few days to hook up to the
for
actual...
5 easy payments of for 5 easy payments of $19.95. This could be yours.
This could be yours. You're currently paying way higher in your averages. You should look into a tree life.
Yeah, exactly. So something like that, you could probably figure it out. But what I'm curious is, I don't know. And the way that I make stuff and do stuff is very systematic. If people haven't figured out by how we've created these, so like the history of these is kind of like leaving a hole before I can finish other things, because I want to know like how did they just always exist? How did they create the world? Did they create the world? How did they get fractured to other planes? Did they get fractured to other planes?
I mean, I think
Were they always
our
a part of
original
another plane?
ideas of they created the world, these godlike characters connected to them, and then didn't want them to like change the world at all, so they teleported them away. I liked that idea.
Well, my other thought, so, man, there's just so many ideas that my other thought would be like, did these beasts teleport themselves away because they sense some sort of danger in humanity, or some sort of danger outside of the world, like some sort of entity, like a Githyanki invasion or something, know, and then once you find these pillars and save the pillars, then oh no, look at our sky. We have a giant invasion of bad guys coming, and that's what these pillars have sensed all along, which is why they hid themselves away. And though you rescued the pillars, you now revealed where they were, and now these entities are coming to kill them, like, like something like that. I don't know, but I could see either.
I think we should leave that for next week.
I agree. Yeah.
And this has been a fantastic creation that we've created here.
It's like it feels good.
It
feels
does.
So good. It feels like we just left off and back at it.
Yeah, it does. It's like riding a bike. But
well, maybe not that hard. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I have enjoyed this. I'm glad we're back at this. I'm definitely not going to release this before Baldur's Gate 3 comes out. Like, it'll be this will come out after. I will have waited until we have a good like chunk of episodes to release. So we should be good for the next few weeks after this is released. But thank you all for listening. And those of you who came back after our long hiatus, welcome back. Like, I'm glad you gave us a try again.
When we meet at a Comic-Con, I will give you a high five.
I will try and just meet with Aaron a lot more. Like, I'll try and make sure these we get these hopefully once a week, but that might not always be doable.
I think if we plan ahead of time and stuff, we can probably get it figured out. But
we'll definitely talk about our schedules more.
Yep.
And work that out.
Cool.
Well, thank you all for listening. And as I always say,
oh no, I forgot about this. And there's a pause, right? Gosh dang it. Are there multiple pauses? Am I just going to ramble? I hate you so much.
I honestly, I'm trying to remember exactly how I word it.
I don't know. You sharpest barrel in the bunch, I think is what you did.
Always remember to be the sharpest barrel in the bunch. See you next time.
Bye.